making the most of your time.
It's Normie's Fatal Attraction. Next time on Cheers.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with great expectations. It's been another day of coast-to-coast speculation about what the president is going to say in his State of the Union address about getting the economy moving again. It is clearly a subject on everyone's mind. The president warned today against what he called election year gimmicks, but he said again, no details now, wait until next week. Well, some of Mr. Bush's advisors are worried that the waiting game is getting somewhat out of hand. At the White House tonight, ABC's Ann Compton.
This morning, there were 2 more attempts by the Bush White House to show a president poised to deliver a dramatic and detailed strategy for helping the economy.
We are working hard on a State of the Union message for next week. I believe that people that think as you do will be pleased with the results. You stay tuned for the next chapter. It'll be coming out.
But alarm bells have gone off among Republicans who worry it may be impossible to meet the high expectations set for the address by the president and his staff. Chief speechwriter Tony Snow is saying the address will set the tone for the next 5 years. And an official campaign memo to corporate supporters calls it the defining moment of the Bush presidency. In private, the president's political friends call the hype crazy, stupid, setting the president up for a fall. In public, conservative Republicans worry he cannot deliver the tough policies that have been promised.
If he doesn't, I think he'll get torn apart, not on the details, but on the fact that, here's a guy who just doesn't know what he wants to do, and he can't afford any more of that.
Much of the president's economic plan has already leaked out, and that's another problem. Some of his friends say it is not the kind of bold stroke that lives up to its advance billing. So does the critic running against him in New Hampshire.
I believe that the tax cuts Mr. Bush is about to propose are anemic and pathetic.
Some of the president's allies also warn if the president does try to cram more into his plan to meet the expectations he created, the message may come out muddled, and that will only confuse the voters. Ann Compton, ABC News, the White House.
In all the speculation about what Mr. Bush will recommend to get the economy moving again, there has been a great deal of talk about capital gains and tax breaks for the middle class. Almost lost in all this is the fact that some economists think the president should consider another option, doing nothing at all. Here's our economics editor, Stephen Ogg.
These are the faces of a recession. Unemployment lines, empty automobile showrooms, businesses shut down, unsold houses. The question for politicians is, would cutting taxes and putting some more money into the hands of consumers fix that? John Albertine used to be an economist with the Congressional Joint Economic Committee, which studied election year tax cuts. He said it is often better not to have one.
Our experience since World War II is that by the time the Congress figures out that there's a recession and then goes through its cumbersome process and enacts a tax reduction, the recession is long over. And so the tax reduction doesn't affect the recession, it affects the period of the recovery.
There is concern that if a tax cut were to go into effect after the recession, it would increase consumer spending, overheat the economy, and push inflation and interest rates up. All of that could eventually lead to a recession. Many economists agree with Henry Aaron, who does research on taxation at the Brookings Institution. He says the least dangerous course would be to leave taxes alone and let the Federal Reserve continue doing what it's been doing.
If the Fed will aggressively pursue a policy of keeping interest rates as low as possible, they will be doing a good deal and enough to help pull the economy out of recession.
Another argument against a tax cut is that it would cut revenues and add to the federal deficit, which could be the biggest economic problem in the long run. But this is an election year, and few politicians are going to worry about that. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, Washington.
Japanese-American relationship in the news again today. Vice President Quayle said today that America's trade relationship with Japan has not reached a crisis point. It is improving, he said, and to suggest otherwise is, in his words, mindless Japan bashing. But another sign today of how much tension there is on this subject. Last night, you may recall, the commissioners in Los Angeles voted to cancel a contract with a Japanese firm to build railway cars because they have been pressured to keep the business in the United States. Today, another move to keep another group of Japanese businessmen from investing in the country. Here's ABC's Bob Jamieson.
Seattle fans have feared for months that their money-losing Mariners would be bought by an outsider who would move the team to another city.
Today, there was an offer from a group that said it would keep them in Seattle, but attention focused on the fact most of the new owners would be Japanese. More than half of the $100 million purchase price would come from Hiroshi Yamauchi, president of Japan's Nintendo, the video game maker. The club's chairman would be Minoru Arakawa, president of Nintendo of America, who has lived in Seattle for 15 years. Republican Senator Slade Gorton supports the move.
Mr. Yamauchi and Nintendo of America did not seek this opportunity out. We sought them out.
But Commissioner Fay Vincent, citing baseball's policy against investors from outside the United States and Canada, immediately threw cold water on the idea.
Ownership will look at it, but I would think it's unlikely.
But in Seattle, the Japanese, who pledged to make the fifth-place finishers a contender, were seen as something the fans could live with.
As long as they stay here, I don't care who buys them.
I think it's a neat opportunity for the Mariners to be purchased by a strong local group, and I think it's a neat opportunity to keep the Mariners in Seattle.
All of this may prove to be an interesting dilemma for Major League owners who must give approval. They may be faced with rejecting a bid from the Japanese that would keep the Mariners in Seattle in favor of one from Americans that would move the team to another city. Bob Jamieson, ABC News, New York.
Another note on the general subject, the Japanese Parliament has made a gesture to the U.S. It will add to its official fleet of cars 2 American models, Buick Park Avenues, $46,000 each. They cost about $30,000 here, but add transportation, taxes, inspection fees, and you have the higher price in Japan. On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials were down 29 points to close at 3226, and the trading was heavy. In just a moment, some of the other news. International promises of help for the Soviet Union, but only a few specifics. On the American agenda tonight, people with disabilities. A new law says they must be treated like the rest of us. And the threat of an Olympic basketball boycott sparked by the fear of AIDS.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Ralston Purina Company of Checkerboard Square.
Dogs don't have a lot in common with cats. Even their nutritional needs are different. But they both love chicken. That's why Purina One developed a separate dog formula and cat formula that both use chicken. Chicken, together with other high-quality ingredients, helps provide ideal nutrition and a naturally good taste that dogs and cats both love. So now dogs do have something in common with cats.
Purina One, second to none.
Oh, are you hungry?
Yeah, but what do you think they feed you at a health spa? All the rabbit food you can eat?
This doesn't look bad. Kraft-free ranch dressing. I eat this at home.
Fat-free, cholesterol-free. Sounds like a real treat.
Oh, just try it. So what do you think?
You sure this is fat-free? Tastes like the ranch I eat.
Kraft-free ranch non-fat dressing. Fat-free, cholesterol-free, but feel free to love the taste.
I may just make it through the end of the week.
In Russia today, Boris Yeltsin warned the 26,000 farms that are owned by the state turn a profit or lose the land. In Washington, representatives from 47 nations who are trying to figure out the best ways to help Russia and the other republics get through their immediate economic crisis finished a 2-day conference. They've had more success describing the problems than coming up with solutions. Here's ABC's John McWethy.
In a move designed to capture world attention, Secretary Baker announced the U.S. next month would begin a military airlift lasting 2 weeks.
During this time, the United States Air Force will fly 54 sorties of critical medical and food shipments to cities in Russia and the new independent states.
All the supplies, worth an estimated $60 million, are leftovers from the Persian Gulf War. German Foreign Minister Genscher, who praised the U.S. move as reminiscent of the airlift that saved Berlin in the late 1940s, could not resist pointing out that Germany has already flown 6 times as many aid missions to the new republics. Though no country announced it was committing new funds, American officials say dozens pledged to help in creative new ways. From the Persian Gulf, for example, Oman promised to help with $200 million to help develop oil production. Argentina said it would absorb up to 100,000 refugees. Thailand pledged a $450 million loan so the republics could buy Thai rice. And all the East European countries who are struggling today because they were once part of the Soviet Empire said even they would open up their ports and rail systems to help move supplies. For many, the last 2 days have provided a first unpleasant look at the depth and complexity of the problem. It is now clear that when a country that covers 1/6 of the world's landmass breaks into pieces, it will take much more than just one conference to figure out how to help. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
President Bush is reportedly considering another major arms control initiative. Despite reductions in the last couple of years, the most destructive weapons of the U.S. and the former Soviet nuclear arsenals have remained intact. Those are the missiles that deliver multiple warheads. The U.S. is apparently ready to start getting rid of them. Our Pentagon correspondent is Bob Zelnick.
Administration sources say the president is willing to reduce by half the number of warheads on Trident II missiles fired from submarines. But he will not do it unless the Russians agree to his earlier proposal that both countries get rid of land-based missiles with more than one warhead, the kind most likely to be used to start a nuclear war.
I think it is safe to reduce the payload of our missiles to single warheads, providing that is done in concert with the government of the former Soviet Union.
Pentagon sources say they are convinced Russian President Boris Yeltsin wants to accept the proposal. The latest sweetener is designed to win over Armed Forces Chief Shaposhnikov, who is concerned about the wide U.S. lead in submarine-launched missiles. Pentagon sources say whatever Moscow does, the president will announce some unilateral cutbacks. These include an end to plans to outfit Trident II missiles with a new, more powerful warhead, an end to the production of MX missiles, and an end to research and development of the Midget-Man missile program.
I would think we could afford to make cuts. We have always had more weapons than the Soviets, and the sharp confrontation that existed for many years has gone away.
If the president's moves are successful, the number of strategic weapons in the U.S. arsenal will shrink to about 6,600, and the Soviets to 5,000, both roughly half their current levels. And as old tensions continue to fade, those numbers could fall to far lower levels. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
The German Foreign Minister Hans-Dietrich Genscher said today that Russia and the other republics should make significant cutbacks in their arms industry if they want more aid from the West. We'll be back in just a moment.
I use a shampoo for dandruff, but my scalp still itches like crazy.
You need new Scalpicin, the revolutionary scalp medicine for deep scalp itch, not ordinary dandruff. Scalpicin is not a shampoo. It's a clear liquid you don't wash away like shampoo. Apply Scalpicin anytime for deep scalp itch relief, with medicine chosen by doctors over all these dandruff shampoo formulas. Scalpicin penetrates to relieve the itch and help prevent flaking.
The itch is gone.
New Scalpicin, the scalp medicine for deep scalp itch.
I'm really sorry I'm late.
Late? We're having coffee.
Taster's choice. Just in time.
You know, everyone except...
We've met.
We, share the same taste in coffee.
Savor the sophisticated taste of Taster's Choice.
Are you always late?
Not tomorrow.
What happens tomorrow?
I'm inviting you to dinner.
What makes you think I'll accept?
You can't resist my coffee.
Everybody needs some money sometime.
Only Western Union can get money to over 16,000 locations in minutes. Nobody else even comes close. Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
Rough, dry skin? That stops with Curel. Curel's rehydration formula absorbs quickly to seal in moisturizers that soothe and heal. Rehydrate dry skin with Curel. First it seals, then it heals.
After dealing with the Soviet Union for the last couple of days, tomorrow Secretary of State James Baker turns his attention to Israel. The Israelis have asked for the meeting to discuss $10 billion in loan guarantees Israel wants from the U.S. It's not going to be a cordial meeting, or at least not likely. The Bush administration is firm. Israel should not expect the help unless it stops building Jewish settlements on occupied Arab land. And Israel goes right on building. Here's ABC's Sheila McVicker.
Israeli drivers fume in early morning Tel Aviv traffic, while almost all the Israeli government's budget for new roads is spent on miles of empty highway in the occupied West Bank. In a poor section of Tel Aviv, there is no government money to repair damage caused by a Gulf War missile. But a few miles away in the occupied territories, government-financed houses and apartments for Jewish settlers are nearing completion. In fact, The Israeli government is now building more faster than ever before on the occupied West Bank. Of all the settler housing built in the past 20 years, 40% was built in 1991.
It'll take another 18 months to finish all the apartments under construction, and we see the automatic increase there of 70,000 people.
70,000 more people the Israeli government thinks will help solidify Israel's hold on the occupied territories. Thousands more new homes are planned. And this group opposed to settlements estimates the Israeli government last year spent more than $1 billion.
We would like the Israeli public to know what they're spending, how many units they're constructing, what are the financial implications to the neighborhoods, to the Israeli society, and to peace, naturally.
Continuing financial support for settlements has endangered American government loan guarantees Israel needs to help house and employ hundreds of thousands of new Jewish immigrants from the former Soviet Union. The U.S. has warned it will guarantee loans only if Israel stops building new settlements. But the finance minister went on TV this week to say Israel will not give in to U.S. pressure. In a choice between loan guarantees or settlements, he said the government would choose settlements, and all Israelis would have to tighten their belts. Already, demonstrators are protesting Israel's 11% unemployment. Without the loan guarantees and new investment, unemployment is predicted to rise to 16%. All of this makes a major political issue even more delicate. Israel may have a falling out with its major ally, the United States. And as Israel heads towards an election, Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir is hoping he will not have to choose between the settlers and the immigrants. Sheila McVicker, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
An Israeli military panel has decided not to expel one of the 12 Palestinians whom the government wants to deport. The appeals board recommended against expelling one of them who was a student at a West Bank university. The other 11 deportation orders still stand, pending appeals to the Israeli Supreme Court. When we come back, the American Agenda.
How can it be that an automobile, a mere 9 inches larger on the outside, gives you over 2 feet more room on the inside? Maybe it's the new math. The all-new 1992 Toyota Camry. We just couldn't leave well enough alone.
My dad had ulcers. So when my stomach started acting up, I was afraid to go to the doctor. But finally, I went. Was I relieved when my doctor said Mylanta? He said it was indigestion, not an ulcer, and my kind of indigestion called for a strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. In fact, Mylanta is the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Sold!
Let's say you bought a painting. Let's say Van Gogh's sunflowers. Let's say you used the Discover card. You'd have a little money coming back. Because with the Discover card, every single charge earns an annual cashback bonus. Nice. It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
Morning breath.
As soon as I have my coffee, it's all gone.
Whether you admit it or not, it's a problem.
Okay, I have morning breath, but it doesn't bother anyone.
Don't be so sure.
Mine's not so bad.
Morning breath's not as bad as you think. It's worse. So get Scope. Its 2 powerful ingredients kill 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath.
Was my morning breath really that bad?
There's no denying morning breath, so save your breath with Scope.
On the American Agenda tonight, ending segregation. In this case, the segregation of America's disabled. There are millions of Americans who have some disability that makes getting a job, and often simply getting around, extremely difficult. Until now, society has not made enough of an effort to accommodate them. But beginning next week, accommodating the disabled is the law of the land. This Sunday, January 26th, the Americans with Disabilities Act goes into effect. It is the most sweeping civil rights law since the 1960s. Our agenda reporter is Ken Kashiwahara.
For Americans like Michael Winter who have disabilities, the major barriers that have kept them out of society's mainstream are beginning to come down. At the New York Hilton, workers are remodeling 52 out of 2,000 hotel rooms to accommodate disabled guests. Larger bathrooms, lower shower heads, and sinks for those in wheelchairs.
Let's try that. 8 o'clock.
In Chicago, the Amalgamated Bank is conducting sign language classes for tellers. It has already lowered teller windows to wheelchair height and installed talking ATM machines for blind customers. And more airports are installing special telephones for the hearing impaired, allowing them to communicate using keyboards. For the disabled, the Americans with Disabilities Act opens doors to jobs, to government services, to virtually every retail business in the country.
It's saying that, I am a first-class citizen. It's saying that that disabled people are not part of an apartheid system anymore, a separate but equal system in America.
The federal law requires businesses to accommodate disabled employees and customers by widening aisles and doorways for those in wheelchairs, or purchasing special equipment for those who can't see, or providing interpreters for those who can't hear. There are no federal funds to implement the law, so the burden of complying with it falls on businesses and local governments. And while few disagree with the law's intent, many complain that the cost will be extraordinarily high. The American Hospital Association estimates it will cost the nation's hospitals $20 billion over the next 10 years. The American Public Transit Association believes it will cost $1 billion a year to make transportation accessible to disabled riders. And hotels estimate accommodating the disabled will cost about $15,000 per room.
I don't think that the final costs are even going to be close to what Congress expected. I think it'll be so far in excess of what anybody ever anticipated.
But Larry Gorski, who oversees Chicago's compliance with the new law, says cost estimates are often exaggerated.
We, on a daily basis, face situations where someone calls us and says they've been told it's going to cost $200,000 to do something. And we'll send somebody out there and take a look at it, and we'll find out what they really have to do, and it may be $10,000 instead.
Will I have to make that accessible to handicapped?
At seminars across the country, employers are discussing the impact of the law, and many are even more concerned about a hidden cost. Because of vague and confusing language, they say, a large number of cases will have to be decided in court. For example, employers must make reasonable accommodations for disabled workers unless it poses an undue financial hardship. Businesses say they don't know what that means.
There isn't any other way short of litigation for us to find out what the answers are. It seems a built-in disaster.
But advocates for the disabled who could file lawsuits under the new law say they will apply the rule of reason.
The disability community has no interest whatsoever in companies spending the most money to do the simplest things.
If a worker in a wheelchair needs a hired desk, the employer can simply raise it up on blocks. A restaurant can either provide a blind customer a Braille menu or simply have the waitress read it.
Hot pastrami, grilled tuna and cheese, tuna salad.
For now, without precise guidelines, many businesses are simply making a good faith effort to comply and hoping for the best. Some are even looking at it as good business.
It will certainly cost us in the tens of millions of dollars, but we're moving ahead rapidly and feel that it's an investment we can recoup with additional business from the disabled community.
Still, many businesses and local governments say they simply cannot afford the cost, at least not in today's economic climate. Clearly, the barriers won't come down overnight, but for the first time, the disabled know that eventually they will. Ken Kashwahara, ABC News, San Francisco.
The American Agenda. We'll have our final report in a moment.
I couldn't sleep at all last night. I was tossing and turning all night.
Instead of tossing and turning, try Unisom. In medical tests, people fell asleep faster and slept better with Unisom than without.
I was sleeping all night.
Take Unisom for faster, better sleep.
Every milestone deserves a new look at your insurance and financial needs with your MetLife representative. Get Met. It pays.
At last, I'm eating a carrot, thanks to Super Polygrip with its Ultra Hold formula.
Now holds dentures ultra tight, stronger and longer than ever. Ultra Hold Formula, the best grip Polygrip has ever made.
The Lexus LS400 is equipped with a very sophisticated suspension system, which makes it seem like it's riding on rails, even when it's not.
Last year's heroes, this year's homeless.
The war's over now. They don't need you now.
Hidden cameras uncover Gulf War vets missing in America. Prime time tonight.
Finally here this evening, Magic Johnson, the threat of an Olympic boycott and the specter of AIDS. In Australia today, members of the Australian national basketball team said they may refuse to play the U.S. at the Olympics next summer if Magic Johnson competes. They say they fear the possibility, however remote, of getting AIDS during a game through contact with infected blood, though there has not been a single documented incident of AIDS transmission through sports anywhere. Here's ABC's Armin Kateyan.
Ever since his retirement last November, Magic Johnson has been working out every day, preparing to play in the NBA All-Star Game next month and for the United States Olympic team this summer. How great is the risk that the infected blood of an HIV-positive athlete like Johnson could get into an open wound of another basketball player? Basketball, with its body blows and flying elbows, can get bloody at times, particularly in international play.
We're told it's pretty safe, but it is a contact sport, and there is blood on the floor, so to speak.
This week, at least 2 members of the Australian Olympic team said they would not feel safe playing against Johnson and said they would walk off the court if Johnson walked on, a position supported by the team's chief medical director.
If a player had real concerns and was very disturbed about the potential, if he perceived it as such, of obtaining infection, well, that I guess he'd be permitted to withdraw from that match.
But Robert Voy, former chief medical officer of the United States Olympic Committee, says there is very little risk.
The chance of getting AIDS in basketball is incredibly small, if possible at all.
Today, the National Basketball Association announced its all-star team, including Johnson, who was voted a starter by the fans. The league said after consulting with medical advisors and Johnson's doctors, his play should not pose any health risk to Magic or other participants. NBA players are divided on the issue. Drazen Petrovic of the New Jersey Nets will play for the Olympic team from his native Croatia.
I'm glad the Magic will be there and playing for a U.S. team, and if I got to play against him and guard him, that's fine with me.
But Petrovic's teammate, Chris Dudley, disagrees.
Even if the chance is very small, we're not talking about catching a cold. You're talking about something that's life or death. So.
And in the latest issue of Sports Illustrated, one U.S. Olympic basketball player is quoted anonymously as saying, "I don't see how any of us could feel we were completely safe if he got injured and started bleeding." Johnson was unavailable for comment, but it appears he will be returning to the court again, this time confronting not only his opponents, but fears about the virus he carries. Armin Kateyan, ABC News, New York.
That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
Thursday.
Lieutenant Colombo. Homicide.
Go behind the glitter of Tinseltown.
An unidentified body found at the beach early this morning. Hands all burned. So you think it was murder? I expect it was something like murder.
Peter Falk in Colombo. Murder, Smoke and Shadows. Thursday at 8, 7 Central.
Come to Big Sur Waterbeds for the hottest new looks. The most popular traditional styles. The best selection of beds for every budget. At Big Sur, $6.99 buys your choice of this oak 4-post bed, the oak Newporter with floating nightstands, the elite oak wall group in queen size, or this heirloom quality canopy waterbed. Quality bedroom furniture for just $6.99. And ask about 0% financing for 6 months. Only at Big Sur Waterbeds, America's largest waterbed retailer.
Locked in darkness, they were called retarded, unteachable. Suddenly they're talented and intelligent. A breakthrough finally frees autistic children from silence. You might say it's a miracle. Plus, Miss Gloria Steinem gets personal, very personal.
If women could sleep their way to power, there would be a lot more women in power than there are now.
Join Diane Sawyer and Sam Donaldson for